My story with Barak really happened like something from above, like a fairy tale. The fact that 7 years already he had been living 3 minutes from my grandmother's house, where I had been staying. After the army, he discovered this place, an old orchard and a packaging house, and he turned it into a sort of ranch and his home. On the day we met, beforehand, he had declared to his friend that he'd never find a woman that would suit him. His friend suggested that they fly to the States to find women. We started hanging out at night, and I was just enchanted by his faith, his simple faith. השמן שהבאתי בבקבוק הקטן בשירותים. לא, זה טוב נגד גירות, זה אמור להיות לפחות.
צריך לסבול את זה עם הקצפתים, זה הבעיה פה, מה אני מערך מהסבל עכשיו? צריך לסבול את זה.
On the third night that we hung out already, I knew, and I suggested that we get married. Mom gave me this prayer to find her zivug, and after the second or third night, maybe that I hung out with Barak, I went home and I read that prayer like I had been doing. And I realized that every trait in there is exactly
I think she's going a bit far with the color.
Okay. We planned it pretty quick, the whole wedding. We didn't take our time. I suggested we do it in the summer while my sister was in Israel. Take her into consideration. And everything was good, besides for the fact that my parents were a little bit suspicious and quite concerned and asked all kinds of questions on the phone because, after all, it did happen pretty fast.
It was such a lightning quick decision that you didn't even... I mean, it just seems like you were more determined to get married than you were to get married to that particular person.
But I insisted, like the same way that I insist with every crazy art project idea that I have. I was in a place of faith. And actually my mom did fly over a month before the wedding was supposed to happen, and my dad is supposed to arrive in 2 days. שהבייביסיטרים יהיו קרובים. But with time, all kinds of doubts settled in. Doubts from inside or outside, I don't even know, but all kinds of fears about aspects of his personality that before just seemed like part of his wonderful simplicity. It got to the point that yesterday I canceled the wedding. Like, I started to notice that he doesn't ask himself difficult questions.
ברק, איך ראית את העזים? איך הם נראו לך כשראית אותם?
אני לא ראיתי דקר.
מה, הם נעלמו לגמרי העזים?
לא, הוא לקח אותם בבוקר, הוא קבר אותם, ראה אותם.
הוא לא השאיר שאתה תראה, לפחות לפי הסימנים שתדע מה קרה להם?
אולי דקר עשה את זה.
רגע, אבל השאלה אם ראית משהו, יכול שהוא לקח אותם שלמות ומחל אותם. לא, זה חבר שלי. שמטפל בחיים. השכן קרא לו, הוא ראה גם את הכלבים פה איתם.
זה כלבים שלך או אחרים?
שלי, השלוש האלה. בחיים אבל הם לא עשו את זה, היה פה 30 עיזים. אבל הם התעלפו עיזים, יש להם עופות, כן. אני לא יודע, הם חשבו שזה כלבים, היה בלבול, לא יודע מה אותו.
אני לא מאמינה שכלב מתבלבל בדברים כאלה, הם הרבה יותר חכמים מבני אדם בקטעים האלה.
The fact that he's not really well educated and he doesn't seem to have much of an interest in getting educated, certainly not for reasons of self-advancement or being some big intellectual.
ויחכה כי בוודאי גם היום יוכל לחטוף איזה טוב אמיתי ויחטוף ויחשוף ברצון חזק עד שיזכה גם ביום הזה לטוב אמיתי. בואו נסתכל. שזה מרוויח ככה, והוא מרוויח ככה, וזה לומד ככה, והוא לומד יותר, והוא בבא.
I'd look around and listen to people around me and always be comparing them to Barak, comparing what they have to what he doesn't. And I couldn't withstand that. I feared that maybe I was tying myself to someone who's not on my level. Yeah, that's what bothered me. When I talked to him about my doubts, he would just say that I need to come to a decision and be whole with my decision. I didn't see that he has any other tools to deal with my doubts, with my complexity. So I figured, okay, I really can't just keep interrogating him. I'm not going to get my answers that way. I just need to come to a decision. So yesterday I spoke with him on the phone, and I asked him, kind of like as a litmus test, I guess, what he had done that day. And in a pretty typical fashion, he kind of gave an answer that was like a non-answer. It's like, I did whatever, and I was just here, and And it reminded me of something that really had been bothering me lately, which is the way that Barak has sometimes of communicating, which is like barely communicating. It's something that really didn't bother me before, and all the time we hung out, I didn't feel like we had a communication problem. I felt like we communicated great. But it became like this thing that occupied me all the time, preoccupied me. I said to Barak, I think we need to cancel the wedding. So we started to talk practically about what it means to cancel the wedding. I said I had spoken to Casa del Sol earlier that day, and they would keep 30% of the cost of the event, which is something like 17,000 shekels. I said it's less about the money, it's more about the people, the shame. And we talked a little bit more, and I think I had a chance to ask him maybe one more question before his phone died. I said, wait, Barak, do you think it's a shame besides for these reasons of the money and the people and the disgrace? And he said, yeah, but everything's for the best. And then the call got disconnected. My mother was pretty shocked. She didn't expect it. Even my grandmother cried a little bit. My mom asked if she could tell my dad already, and I said, first I have to call Barak's parents and notify them. So I called Ofra. But Ofra really didn't intend to give up so quickly. She sat with me on the phone for at least a half hour to try and settle my mind. She said, in general, she urged me to connect to my feelings, my intuition, to what I felt from the beginning when I decided to get married. I'm a big girl, I made this decision myself. So to connect to that place of in my heart, I argue that there needs to be balance between feelings and thought. But she argued a lot more for feelings, actually, because she said that logic can tell us a lot of things, and it can be confusing. And she asked me if I had spoken to Barak about this, and I had to admit that, yeah, I pretty much canceled with him. I think her heart dropped a little bit, but she didn't give in. And I'd put her on loudspeaker the whole time, so my mother was hearing this conversation, and my sister also joined. And I was surprised, because my mother beforehand had been basically flip-flopping with me. But my mother nodded her head and agreed with every word Ofra said on the phone. It was like they had some shared understanding between them, a womanly understanding. After we hung up, my mother suggested I write Barak a letter. Sweet. And I wrote him a letter and I said that I know I didn't give him very much reason to have faith in me, but that I forgot, I just forgot the initial feelings that I had for him. I forgot how much I valued his wisdom and his simple faith. And I forgot how much I enjoyed kissing him. And I said that if he was still able to take me back, then I would see him under the chuppah. Doubts about my husband. The whole reason that I wanted to get married so much was to be in that place of faith. To have at least that one thing, my husband, to be like a sacred thing that I don't ask questions about. That's what I was aiming for with all of my being. And that's what Barak really offered to be for me from the beginning. In the beginning, I was coming from a place of no judgment, and it was awesome. It was great. Later on, with some of the stresses, I found myself starting to check him, to investigate, after I had already made the decision. And when I came from a place of checking, testing, it was different. It was ruined. It wasn't the same way. So what I'm getting at is that sometimes when you test something, you alter the reality with that approach.
כי בוודאי מהראוי שיעשה רק צרכי הנפש ויבטל הגוף לגמרי כמו. אתה רואה למה אני לא קורא? אבל פתאום אני רוצה לעבוד את השם בלי הכרה. לבטל את הגוף, לעזוב הכל, איך להתפלל.
I want to make art about this whole process. Barak's not used to the camera, but he's gonna let me film anyway.
לא מצלם את זה עכשיו.
אני לא מצלמת. אני באתי להסתכל על מה שצילמתי, מה שאתה צילמת אותי.
מחמור?
כן.
מה צילמת אותי? אבל היה קשה. אבל הייתי לוקח מהאמצע, נהיה כמו בור. כל הבור הזה יום אחד
מתמלא
במים, לא יודע מה, התמלא במים של דבש.
טוב, מדברים הרבה על...
שמה, זה עובד? אני שמה את המצלמה וזה, אני מרגיש כאילו אני עושה הרצאה פה.
תראה, אני גם מצלמת את עצמי.
לא.
אני לא מתביישת. בסדר, I think it's an interesting idea, trying to make art with your life partner in mind, because I think art is usually a pretty selfish pursuit. It's a pretty egotistical pursuit. There could be a team of people making something artistic, but the inspiration comes from one person, because an idea can only come from one mind. Art, especially modern art today, is almost necessarily critical. It might have aesthetics in it, but it almost necessarily comes to criticize something. So I'm wondering if if it's possible to make art that also raises questions, relevant questions, but also tries to look at the good, like the way that you're supposed to with your life partner, with your husband or wife, not to criticize, to find the beauty.
בואו נשמות בואו, אם לכם אוכל באדם, אז תקחו כמה. בואו נשמות בואו, הנה. תשאיר לי כמה? די. לא את כל הבמבה, לא, תמשיך, נאכל ביחד, אני והילדים, בו זמנית, אין לי בעיה, אני אוהבת את זה. זה שלי, אני לא רוצה לאכול אפילו רק עם כנראה שלי. תשכחו, אני איתכם. אני לא נגיד לכם. עוד קצת, אני בדיקה שלא קצת, נכון?